Tonight marks the fourth night of Hanukkah, and tomorrow we are officially 1 week away from Christmas.
And during the season of celebrations and joy, it is also a meaningful time to pause, reflect, and reconnect with our faith and the love that brings us together.
Joining us to help guide that reflection, Rabbi Rachel Ain of Sutton Place Synagogue here in New York, and Father Joseph Farrell, the newly elected leader of the Augustinian Order. Father Farrell also happens to be a close friend of Pope Leo XIV. Good morning to
both of you.
Nice to see you. Rabbi Ain, so fourth night of synagogue, of Hanukkah. Thank you very much. I'm thinking synagogues. So remind folks, what is the significance of Hanukkah?
There are two messages. Often people think about the miracle of the lights, that after the dedication of the temple, the rededication, that after the Jews were able to come back, that the oil lasted for 8 days, not just one. And we think about the miracle of that and the faith. But really, the miracle that we're celebrating is that the Jews were able to live as free Jews, that they were able to celebrate their faith openly, joyously, and proudly when so many were trying to suppress that. And that is not just a lesson of history. That is an important lesson of today. We see the rising surge of anti-Semitism, the horrible terrorist attack of Bondi Beach in Australia, the attacks going on in Crown Heights, on the subway, and all over. And that is a message that I am deeply concerned with. And when I think about our synagogue, what we're trying to teach our kids and our adults is you can live proudly as Jews and safely as Jews. And that is a message that I want to communicate to our families.
It's a very important message. Father Farrell, Christmas is about a week away now. Yes. What is your message as we head into the holiday season?
Yeah, I think it's a message very similar to the message of Hanukkah, that there's a light that comes into the world. And we need to celebrate that light and recognize that that light can really bring us joy, because the light is always more powerful than the darkness, always more powerful than the darkness.
I love that. And I should bring you in here. I think a lot of times this is the time of reflection, and you think about forgiving other people, but we don't often talk about forgiving yourself sometimes for certain things.
Absolutely. So forgiveness is a message that can take place all year long. You know, as a Jew, I have an opportunity to do New Year's a lot. We do it in the September, October time. We can do it in the December, January time. But we can also do it 3 times a day. Jewish prayer takes place 3 times a day. And we say, Slach lanu avinu ki chatanu, forgive us, for we have sinned. It's part of our daily prayer. And we think about, what does it mean to forgive ourselves? What does it mean to forgive one another? There's a concept in Judaism called tshuva, self-reflection, forgiveness of one another, and there's processes of going through this act of forgiveness, and it's really quite intense and really quite remarkable. So I encourage everybody to go through that.
You know, Father Farrell, Rabbi Ain kind of referred to this earlier, the massacre of Bondi Beach, the news that we're hearing these days, the shooting in Providence. And, you know, what do we do, and how do we deal with our faith when there are times, especially now, that tend to test it?
Right, and they do. These tragic events do test our faith. You know, we think we believe in a God who is a God of love. We believe in a God who created us to love. And that same God created us with freedom. Unfortunately, we make wrong decisions at times. And those wrong decisions should not cancel out the fact that that God still exists, that God is with us, right? I mentioned light earlier. When that light shines on us, it also shines, you know, away the darkness. But in that bright light, we can also see our own faults, our own failings. And it gives us an opportunity, each of us, if there's a tragic event in Australia, Bondi Beach, to still look at myself and say, what do I need to do within myself to change, to change an attitude I have, or a relationship that I have, to fix it, to reconcile.
And how to figure out how to help lift each other up. A friend of mine, his son is a student at Brown, and after the tragedy this weekend, he shared a beautiful story how parents were helping low-income students who might not have been able to change their flights get home earlier by providing funds to get them off campus earlier, because Brown was allowing all the students to leave earlier. And that, to me, is a tremendous act act of seeing God's work in this world, where people were helping each other in the face of such evil and such darkness with this shooting, that people are good and people are helping. And let's look for the goodness. Let's look for that light.
And before we let you go, Father, I know you've been friends with the Pope Leo for decades. I mean,
Yes.
it's kind of a wild time for us to have, you know, an American Pope, for you to be friends with him.
Sure.
And this is his first Christmas. What do you think he's feeling going into Christmas this year?
Yeah, I'm sure it's an exciting time for him, as for all of us, when we celebrate the season. I think he's feeling that sense of sending a message that we need to continue to live in the presence of God. He recommended that book, Practicing the Presence of God, that I know Carson is reading, right? Practicing the presence of God, not allowing ourselves to be distracted, but living in that presence. And I think that's going to be a message that he'll continue to deliver with us.
Rabbi Ain, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you
Have
for
a great
having me.
Hanukkah.
Both of you.
Father,
Thanks
thank
so
you
much.
so much. Please give the Pontiff our regards.
I will.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Happy
Happy
holidays.
holidays. Happy New Year.
Hey, thanks for watching. And don't forget, you can catch the Today Show every morning on NBC, or take Today when you're on the go. Just follow the Today podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.